from my heart, thank you very much for being here. And this is a 2-hour presentation around the relationship between sacred geometry, the flower of life, and crop circles. And we will also have a little bit of work around ETs in this, because it's impossible to talk about crop circles, really. Even though I did it last night, it's pretty impossible to talk about crop circles without talking about ETs, because they're intimately connected to the whole thing. And this can't be much more than an introduction. The Flower of Life alone, when it was presented, in order for someone to truly understand it, well, it took 8 days. And that was from 9 in the morning till 9 in the evening. And so 2 hours is pretty quick, and we're covering several subjects here. But I think you're going to find this interesting. How many people have no idea what the Flower of Life is? Okay, just about 3-4 people. How many people have never really worked with sacred geometry at all? Okay. All right, it gives me an idea, anyway. How many people have actually taken the Flower of Life? Okay. A few people. All right. And these guys have a lot to do with it, too. Thank you very much. These are some of the original ETs on the planet. They're not from here. They're from a star called Sirius, third planet out from Sirius B. It's another story. So this is what's called the Flower of Life. And we're going to talk about this just for a moment in its simplistic form. Well, first of all, this symbol is an ancient symbol. It's older than the Earth itself, but even in terms of the Earth, it's been in our culture since the beginning. There has never been a time when humanity has been on Earth when that hasn't been. And I can show it to you. I'll show you in just a little bit. It's found all over the world, everywhere. We're still finding it in places around the world. There's hardly anywhere that we can't find it. In ancient temples and everywhere. And it looks just like a drawing, a simple. It's got 19 circles in there with 2 outer circles around it. 19 completed circles. There are lots of them like that one that's not completed. You see these ones that are not finished. But of the completed ones where you have a full circle, there's 19 of them in there. I could go on for about 2 hours just what the number 19 means. The Quran, for example, a lot of people talk about the Bible code, the Torah code. You know, you've heard lots and lots about that. Do you know about the Quran code? Most people aren't aware of that. They're still unfolding it right now. It's astonishing, actually. The Quran begins with the sentence, Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim, which means we begin in the name of God, most compassionate and most merciful. But that one sentence, it can be arranged in many different ways, and no matter how you do it, the numbers add up to 19 every single time. And then every sentence in the entire Quran, without exception, numerically adds up to 19. What's the odds of that? I mean, how could anybody even do that? I mean, it's just like you'd have to really think about it. And so obviously there's some kind of code based on 19 in the Quran. And there is one in here too based on 19. But at any rate, contained in this, and I'm just going to make some statements here that are, in the beginning, are pretty outrageous. Contained in this one image, in the proportions and shapes that are there, is literally all the knowledge of the universe, period, in the end. There is absolutely nothing on any level of our existence, and any other dimension, or anywhere whatsoever, that isn't completely and utterly defined, totally, from this one single image. There's over 10,000 researchers in the world right now that are researching around this. Nobody can find an exception. It even covers things that, in a moment you'll see how like all crystal structure and all viruses, everything, it just goes on and on, is related to this. But even things that you would never dream were related to geometry, like emotions, the feeling of love, and or even the negative emotions, all of them are purely geometrical in nature. It was Manfred Klein who figured that out. And he was actually written up in Wall Street Journal for this because it was so amazing. And other people like Dan Winter have also done other things. Dan Winter has taken people who, using EKGs, a very crude way of doing it, and having them in one room in there and watching the response of their heart from a remote room, somewhere else where they can't even see the person. And what comes up on their computer screen is a sine wave signature. It's just a sine wave pattern. And from that sine wave pattern, it can be converted into a three-dimensional shape that you can hold in your hand. And from looking at that sine wave pattern, they can tell you exactly and perfectly what you're feeling. They can tell whatever the truth is inside there, whatever it is, and just watch your feelings moving in there. And it's all based on sacred geometry. And it all comes back to this one little image up here, this flower of life. And so the more you study it, the more amazing it gets. I've been studying it now since 1971. And at this point, I've kind of stopped because I get it. I get that it's absolutely everything. And I'm now more interested in other things around what that means rather than the core of what it is. But it is the creation pattern itself. And it is the pattern that God created this entire world through. And there is no other pattern that it was created through, only that one. And that's real clear when you study it, when you see what it is. And so all of sacred geometry, no matter whether you're looking at golden mean spirals or anything else or whatever it is that you're involved in sacred geometry, I can directly take that image that you're working with and pull it straight out of there. I can take every sacred geometry image there is that you can come up with even all your computers, and I can trace it directly back out of that. That holds it all. And so this was understood by the ancient world. Long time ago, all the ancient cultures all over the world fully understood this. They understood that this was it. This was the everything and the all. And their religions were based on it. And so you can go everywhere around the world and you'll see this literally on their walls. For example, this is in Greece. And if you come back here, you'll see, first of all, this central pattern right there. You see those 6 petals, and you'll either see that one, or you'll see the one with the loops in it, or coming right up here, if you put a circle around that one, you'll see that there's 6 around one. That's called the seed of life, and that one is also found in walls all over the world. And then this bigger one is called the flower of life. So you have the flower, you have the seed in the middle, and you have the core. I don't know what the name of it is, but it's everywhere. And so just for a moment, I'm going to just show you some of the places where this is located and just talk about that for a moment, just to show you that it is. Now here, this is a floor in Greece, a mosaic in Greece. You see the dolphins here, and right here you see that core pattern of the flower of life. It was the most sacred image in the world, and everybody knew it. There wasn't anybody who didn't know this a long time ago. And this is one coming out of Turkey, a drawing that was on a box that was used in their rituals. And again, you see the core of the 6 circles around it, which is the seed of life pattern. And this is out of Turkey. This is Masada, where what do you call them? The Essenes, thank you. The Essenes, last night I talked about the Druids, but there were 3 groups that came out of Egypt all at the same time, and they worked together together. And that was the Coptics, the Essenes, and the Druids. The Druids went to England and that area and there, and Ireland, southern France, and all that place. And the Coptics went to Ethiopia and also remained in Egypt. And the Essenes went to this place here called Masada. They built that. And if you go into their central church, the most sacred of all places, and you go into the very center floor of there, which is this right here. There's not much left. That's going to have to be focused. But right there, this is the central floor of the whole thing. Right there is the outer edge of the flower of life, which you can't see in this very well, but in a 35 millimeter photograph, it's clear. There's no doubt at all. It's the edge of the flower of life. It was the most important information that they knew. This is, oh, I got it backwards. I wonder if I have them all backwards. Okay, we have to all run to the other side of the screen now. It says Seeds of Change. It's a natural seed company. But this little image in the back, and I saw this when they did it because I helped these guys get started, that came off of a leather pouch that came out of Tibet. And in that was an instrument for planting seeds. And on there is the seed of life, the very basis of what we're talking about. And this came out of Ireland, and it's Celtic. It's a door plate knob. And here you have something you're going to see in just a moment, these 13 circles around here. This comes directly out of the flower of life. It's a deeper level of the knowledge, and the Celtics were deeply involved in this. I'll come back to that one in just a moment. Let's see, I've got piles of these things at home, and I don't have them on slides. We found an entire monastery in Greece that was dedicated just to this image. It's in 32 places mounted on the outside of this monastery all the way around. It's in every single window, the flower of life exactly as we saw it on there. And the flower of life, the monk that ran that monastery was Melchizedek. It's stated right on the walls. And we found it in 18 other places around the Mediterranean. We found it in Ireland and England, buried deep in the dirt on rocks, huge rocks. It was buried in there. We found it in southern France. We found it in Egypt. In fact, the first place we ever found it was on a 6,000-year-old wall in Egypt. And that was the first time we ever found it in the culture. Not only did we find the flower, but we found the seed of life, and it was obviously a school where the Coptics were teaching from there toward the end of that. They were teaching about the flower of life at that time. We also found it in Tel El Amarna in a casket that they removed. When they took off the casket, it was embedded directly over the top of the person, so the person that was embalmed in there was looking directly at the flower of life as they died. I said we found it in Tibet. We found it in China, in one of the most prominent places in China. It's all over China. It's in a million places in China. Even they make these screens that people have in their houses everywhere. Though most of them don't remember what it is, and there's just links of flower of life. But it's all in the Forbidden Palace, on the very throne of the emperor. On either side of the throne of the emperor, there's these two big lions. And the female has like a kitten, a baby lion, where she's controlling the nature and the growth of life. And the male lion on his side, and it says right there that in ancient times that male lion was protecting all the knowledge of the universe. And what he has is a ball underneath his right paw, which is a three-dimensional flower of life. Three-dimensional spheres set up with a pattern over the top of it. I spent a lot of time in China talking to the Shintos and the Shinto priests over there, because you'll see the flower of life all over all over Japan in the Shinto. I said China, right? In Japan. And later you're going to see something very soon called Metatron's cube. And the Shinto priests, they not only use the flower of life, the seed, and all the other basic images that come out of it, but once a year the Shinto priest puts on this robe which has Metatron's cube right on the saying here and walks down it's a ceremony that they do. And I talked to 3 of these Shinto priests. They didn't know, they had forgotten everything. They didn't know anything. They had lost their memory. And they went to the workshop, and all 3 of them were sitting there with their mouths open like that because they had no idea what it meant because they had lost it. It all come down to just ritual was what it was. And here's another man we're all familiar with. That's also reversed, so I've reversed them all. Hopefully there's not too many words. Well, there are words on some of these things. You know, it would only take a minute, I guess. Does somebody...
Exercise for us.
Yeah. So we're right here. So starting right now. A full understanding of the flower of life was then. What has happened, by the way, every time the world or an area of the world remembers the flower of life, because you're always going to remember because it's in every cell of your body. Whenever they remember it, there's always a renaissance. There's an incredible renaissance that takes place because it ties all the knowledge of the universe together. So it makes you kind of like a genius once you understand it. You begin to work on levels that you normally wouldn't. You can take one subject and tie it to another subject and begin to see things that are just, it's a tool that when you understand it, it's incredible. I can show you how, Leonardo was considered one of the most intelligent and brilliant people that ever lived, and his IQ was just immeasurable. And it was because of the flower of life. And this is his drawing. He spent a very long time studying the flower of life and everything in it. Not only did he study it on those levels, but he spent years and years taking every little aspect of the petals and all the various ways that it's possible to look at these things. These are just a couple pages of his stuff. He has volumes of work just around the flower of life. The masons that built all the cathedrals in Europe, which he was a mason also. The cathedrals that were built in Europe going all the way back to the pyramids in Egypt. If you take the cornerstones out of the cornerstones, the masons signed their names, but their names were these funny things that looked like stuff like lines or like that was their names. Every single mason that's ever lived, their name maps over the flower of life perfectly. It's obvious that that's where they came from. And you remember the ruins, those things you throw, those ancient ruins that you throw, and all those symbols, they map perfectly over the flower of life. Whoever was doing that also derived the system of the ruins through the flower of life. Even the astrological symbols that we're familiar with came from the flower of life, and they all map directly over the flower of life. The symbols for Venus and Earth and all those other things, every single one of them. Perfectly. It's not just sort of or kind of. It's mathematically flawless.
What about the I Ching?
The I Ching is very, very interesting because they don't use the symbols directly from the flower of life, but their knowledge is based on the 64 changes, which is tied directly to the DNA. And that's a 5,000-year-old plus book. And there's now 3 books out written by doctors that prove beyond a doubt that the I Ching is a function of the DNA patterns. The 64 codons and the 64 changes of the I Ching are perfect across that. However, the way the I Ching is mapped onto three-dimensional surfaces is a cube. And that's been also even copyrighted by some of the people who have been involved in this. And in the beginning of the I Ching, it starts out with a mother, father, 3 sons, and 3 daughters, which maps out a star tetrahedron inscribed in a sphere. and the mother and the father's above, the mother's below, and we'll see in a little bit the star tetrahedron that's around the body. And so the I Ching is also directly connected to the flower of life information, but indirectly on a much deeper level than directly to the image itself, even though they had the image of the flower of life all over China, and even in ancient China, it's clear that that's where they got it from. But we can't take it and tie it directly to it because it's such a deep level of information that they skipped all the stuff in the middle, in between. I don't have a focus on here. Cheap equipment.
You tell me what you think it's.
Okay, keep going. Yeah, right about there. There you go. They can tell you actually better. That's it right there. So there's this little image. We found it in the Yucatan, and the Mayans had it, and at Chichen Itza and a couple other places where we found it on their pillars. I can go on for a long time on this one. I know I'm leaving out lots and lots of places that we have discovered this in ancient times. There's a pyramid in Tibet. This one was pretty amazing. It's a pure white pyramid. It only comes out of the snow. It's in western Tibet. It's in unmarked, uncharted areas. There's no even maps that they can give you that will, except from satellite maps and things that will. You can't just drive there. You have to. It's a six-month walk to get into this place. And so there's been two teams that have tried to get to it, and I've talked to both of the teams. The first team got there and got onto this rim where you're looking down in this valley where it is, and they couldn't go in and see it because if they did, they'd all die because they wouldn't have enough food to get back. And so, and you're in snow. So they had to leave. But the second team did make it in, and I talked to them, and they came to me because they went in this pyramid only comes out of the snow for about 6 weeks out of the year, because otherwise it's covered in snow. It's all white, it's perfect, it looks like it's made in the 21st century, according to these guys. And it's got a crystal cap stone on the top that's about 6 feet across, one-piece crystal. And there's an opening inside of it at the bottom, where you can get down, and they had to dig down to get into that. And it goes inside. There's a whole complex in there. There's absolutely no writing anywhere on the walls. It's still all white inside, white stone, except there's this one big, huge cubicle room in the middle, and on the far back wall, there's only one image, and it's that. It's the only thing. They didn't have to say anything else, because if you really know what it is, it's absolutely everything. Every law of physics, speed of light, everything that you can talk about in physics, I don't care what it is, you can derive directly out of here. And a team of people out of California did it. They can come up with all the laws based on what's coming out of here. Anything you want to talk about in terms of the reality, you're going to find it inside the flower of life. I mean, this is not me. I didn't make this up. This is ancient. This is the ancient world. The whole world knew this. And it was the basis of their religions, and it was the basis of their understanding of what the reality was that we all live in. I'm going to show you how this worked. I can't go into great depth in this, and I have to move a little faster than I normally would. And if you are really interested, at the end of this, there'll be some slides up, and I'll tell you how you can take classes and everything to get deeper into all of this, if you wish. And then once you understand it, you can go on your own research. Once you know what it is and how it works, so you really don't need me or anything, because you can continue in other ways, no matter what it is that you're interested in, no matter what is up here that you think is worthwhile pursuing, that image will tell you every single thing that's known in the universe about it, without exception. If they use this in universities, it would change the whole way that universities function, because it would tie all the different departments together into one coherent linking system. New York and California is considering doing it. I don't know if they ever will, though, or not. Why did they, see, this is an infinite pattern. You could go on forever. But all over the world, they always stopped at 19 circles and put another second circle around it. Well, why? Why was it only that way? Why did they stop? Really what this is, and if you understand how it's created through consciousness, it's a vortex. It's a rotating vortex is the way it comes out. It comes from the void, out of nothing. And I can't explain that very well right now. But in ancient Egypt, it was known throughout the world how this was done. There was actually two ways that this could be done. One was male and one was female. But they stopped at this particular place because the very next rotation of the vortex produced an image that was so sacred that they didn't want you to see it. They didn't want you to, they didn't want to put that image out on walls and things. It was too sacred because everything in the world that we're in, the actual fabric of this reality, literally all the atoms and the way that they arrange themselves and all the little tiny nuances of the reality and all its little ways come out of one single image. And that image was too sacred, so they hid it. And they knew that if you understood, you could take one more rotation of the vortex from this, and you'd come to the image. And you get that by completing the circles. You see these little bits and pieces we were talking about. When you complete those circles, you complete them all, and then you take one more rotation. It's like this. These 6 circles here there's a circle here, 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 there, and one that's perfectly touching inside. Like if you take 7 pennies and push them together, they'll exactly touch that center penny. And so those 6 around 1 is the basis of all this. It's all tied to the Bible, how that we were created in 7 days. The first 6 days were the creation around that, and the one in the center was the day of rest. And in fact, the Christian Bible, by the way, we are using one version of it, and we're really steadfast, and we think that is the version that Jesus authorized. Do you know that there's 900 versions of the Bible? 900, and we're choosing one. And that one has been changed. 22 books have been removed, and vast amounts of information have been thrown away. And the original Bibles, our Bible starts out in the beginning, was the Word. None of the original Bibles started out that way. They started out in the beginning, there were 6. The oldest version started out in the beginning, there were 6. And they're relating to these 6 circles around this one. So if you complete all those lines, you get these blue lines around here. You see, these are the completed lines of the flower of life. This is the outer edge of the flower of life, the yellow line. You complete them all and you get this pattern. The next vortex is the innermost place, which is there, 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 and there. And so the next rotation produces those 6 circles, which when connected with the ones in the middle, produce this image here. That image is extremely important for anyone who is interested in how this reality is put together. It's called the fruit of life. It's called the fruit because from it and there's the tree of life also, which is also in the flower of life. It's mapped directly over it. That's where the tree of life came from. And you can see that clearly, but I don't have that here with me right now. But the fruit of life is what came from the tree, and from within that there are systems of knowledge. There's 13 distinct systems of knowledge. Just as there's 13 circles, there's 13 systems of knowledge, and those 13 systems of knowledge contain everything. Everything in terms of structure and form that's in our world. It defines actually your human body down to the last little detail, even the color of your hair and eyes and everything else. It's hard to see this right now until you get deeper into it, and you go, oh my gosh, it's true. It takes a while to see it. But also in sacred geometry, a curved line, no matter what the curve is female. And male lines are always straight. They're absolutely straight. And so this is made up only of female lines. The 13 systems of knowledge are created by the 13 possible ways that male lines can be superimposed over the top of these 13 circles. In the Flower of Life, we're going to talk about 4 of them. Right now, I'm only going to show you 1 of them. But there's 13 ways the male can superimpose over the female pattern here. And when it does, it produces this vast system of knowledge that you could study the rest of your life on just one system. Easy, without even trying, just working on that one system. To see all the implications and all the various ways that it connects into life and exactly how it does it. And the first system, the simplest, the most obvious one, is just to connect the centers together by straight lines. Just take a straight line from there and run down there, and there'll be one down there, and connect from here, this center to that center, this center to that center, in all possibilities, in all possible ways. And you get that. That's called Metatron's cube, and that's what the Shintos that I talked about a little while ago, they had that on their breastplate, exactly like that. And they're walking down the streets, they're doing these ceremonies, they're doing this whole thing, and not having any idea what that is. None, they didn't know, because it just got lost. It's like the Freemasons and all that stuff. They're teaching sacred geometry too. I've had some of the highest levels of Freemason go through the Flower of Life, and with their mouths open, because they had forgotten what it was all about. They had only remembered certain areas of it. They know more than most, but they had forgotten what the deeper levels of what this really means. I mean, in truth, the very words that I'm telling you and speaking to you right now are contained in that image. They're in there already. Every single thing that has happened in the past, is happening now, or ever will occur, and all of its possibilities is contained in the Flower of Life. I know these are outrageous statements, but if you don't believe me, spend a little time, and I think that even within 1 year of study, you'll begin to understand. Hidden in here, in this image, there are 5 distinct shapes. These shapes were known in the schools of Egypt and also in the schools of Greece and in the Renaissance of Italy. They found these shapes 3-dimensionally as old as 20,000 years old. They found them in the ground, perfectly carved, 20,000 years old. So these people 20,000 years ago knew about this. Long before what we think civilization is. The oldest we know civilization is 6,000 years back to the Sumerians. John Anthony West, if you've looked at his information, which is incredible, the guy really knows what he's talking about on levels, even though he has very little support from Egypt. Because they don't want to, this is something he may not have told you, but the reason he doesn't have this support is because of the Quran. Did he mention this? Probably didn't, because he doesn't want to get tied to that whole thing. But it's like they discovered the Noah's Ark. You know this, don't you? They know where Noah's Ark is. They found it on Mount Arafat up in Turkey. And I talked to that team also, and they showed me everything. It was amazing. It's the size of the Queen Mary. Everything in there is based on sacred geometry. The length of every doorway, the height, everything is all based on sacred geometry. There's hundreds and hundreds of rooms in there. It has a system that's amazing. It's got underneath the bottom of the boat, it's got an opening a little bit bigger than this room, facing to the water. And from the top up there are hundreds of channels that go to all the rooms. So as the water goes up and down, it pumps all the air out of all these rooms, and they've calculated that it changes the air in the room 72 times an hour, just by the movement of the boat going up and down in the waves. It's brilliant, absolutely brilliant. And all the hinges and everything are made out of iron. And very high quality. And so when they carbon dated this, it was carbon dated at about 10,500 BC, or 12,500 years ago, which corresponds exactly with all the research that a lot of other people are doing. Turkey would never allow that information to go out. They refused it, and they repudiated it, and they would not allow it to be even seen. They wouldn't even show it. Why? Because the Quran says that creation began 6,000 years ago. And for you to say anything is older by human hands than 6,000 years old, they won't talk to you. Because they can't. They can't do that. And that same thing happens in Egypt. So when John Anthony West says that the Sphinx is 10 to 15,000 years old, at least, they're not going to support him on this. They're going to do everything they can to discredit him. And even though they're using Robert Schoch and science and computers and everything to make them prove it, you got about, 12, 13, 14 feet of wear in the Sphinx, and you have almost no wear on the Great Pyramid in relationship to it, and supposedly they're built at the same time. No way. It's not true. But you're not going to get a lot of support out of Egypt, and anybody who wants to even imply that anything's older than 6,000 years old. So you need to know that when you're studying ancient Egypt. But in terms of this, there are 5 shapes. 3-dimensional shapes you can hold in your hand, and there are also 2-dimensional shapes you can see flatly that are the keys to the reality on one level. And they are called the Platonic solids, which is after Pluto. Pluto. Yeah, I like Pluto, actually. Plato. I'm still sleeping, actually. Plato. But they're not, he didn't do it. It was much older than that. And even Pythagoras, which was before him, was teaching about that. And you're looking at all 5 of them right now. They're all hidden there in those lines. If you take certain lines, now one of them is obvious. If you take this line here and that line there, and then you take the line that goes into the middle, those 6 lines there, and you look at them, you get this. And that is a star tetrahedron. It's 2 tetrahedrons interlocked. It's the key to consciousness and to the reality. It's the key to ascension that we're all working on right now. There are higher levels of it, but this is the doorway through which we all must pass at some point or another. It's the star tetrahedron, which is actually inscribed in a sphere, because if you put a sphere perfectly around that outer thing, there's a sphere that contains it. Speaking of Egypt, there are these pyramids that are in Egypt. What are they called? They call them masabas, but they are in an area. The military has fences around them. They're illegal for you to go in them. They don't want you to know about them because they're older than 6,000 years old, and it's real obvious in lots of ways. And they say, oh, they're nothing. They're just made out of bricks and muds and everything like that. But there's one of them. I can't bring up the name of it anymore. I forgot what it was, and I had to pay lots of money and bribe all kinds of people to get into this thing. But I got into it, and the outer core of this is made of stones that weigh about 200 tons each, and that's packed around. And there's a complex that's 10 miles around that they won't even look at or even touch. They won't even tell you it's there. And on the surface of one of those huge stones facing in that building is exactly this, the star tetrahedron inscribed in a sphere. And inside of there are only geometrical images. There's no hieroglyphics throughout the I got to speak with the team that went in there. They were able to photograph and to decipher it, which they now believe, it's an American university team, they now believe was the core of what has created hieroglyphics and created all the language on our planet. They say they can show it came out of this one pyramid. And it was all geometrical in its basis. You know, stuff like that will eventually come out in your books 100 years from now. It takes a long time before discoveries actually get accepted and get understood and then get put into mainstream. Mainstream is the last area where you ever get to hear anything that's really going on. It's like the Noetic Sciences, Edgar Mitchell that I mentioned before. We were sitting in a hotel room talking, and he told me that NASA has now discovered the unified field theory. They know what it is. They're not going to tell you. But they want that edge. They don't want the world to know what the unified field theory is because they're able to do things in physics that would be seemingly impossible based upon it. But the unified field theory is what Einstein was looking for, and it's the holy grail of science. But between relativity, which was Einstein's work, and quantum physics, and there are anomalies between those two that have never been really solved. Those anomalies have now been solved by NASA completely, and they've developed a completely different system to perceive the world through. And it's based on the fact that the world that we are looking at, this outer image, is a hologram, literally. And which we can talk about in the Flower of Life, but in a different way. But they have discovered that it is a hologram, and they've also discovered that like in a hologram, if you take a little piece of a holographic picture, you can look into it and you'll see the big image, the whole image. I mean, you can take a little tiny piece of that piece, and this big image is still in there. And you can take a little tiny piece of that one. And no matter how small you go, the image of the whole is contained in any piece, no matter how small you get. It's an interesting phenomena. Well, the reality contains the same phenomena. They can look into your body, and they've done this, knowing the new reality of the new science that they're working through. They can look, and this is what Edgar Mitchell told me this directly. They can look directly into your body, and they can see the entire heavens and all the star patterns, three-dimensionally. All the stars, everything. Everything that's out there, they can find it in you. And not only that, they can then take a fingernail, clipping off of your fingernail, and look in that and see the same star pattern. It's holographic. This is the world we live in. It's pure consciousness. It's not what we think it is. It's not a solid, hardcore thing. It is just energy, nothing more. And that energy is a function of your consciousness. This is the way we're going to get out of this mess we're in. Because we have a great power within us. It's an awesome power. It's absolutely unbelievable power, and it's in every single one of us. Okay, so this is, and that one of those, if you just took one of those, is a tetrahedron, which is the first platonic solid. Now, what are platonic solids? Let me talk about that just for a second. Platonic solids, these 5 shapes, are unique. There are no other shapes in the universe, that science can find anyway, that have the qualities of that they have. They first of all have only one side. If you think of a tetrahedron, which is the simplest shape there is, it's just a 3-sided pyramid. All the sides are the same. And all the faces are the same, just an equilateral triangle in this case. And the angles inside are all the same. And they all fit perfectly inside of a sphere. There are no other shapes but 5 in the whole universe that will do that. Only 5. And they are extremely important. This is a more complex one here, which is called the icosahedron. And again, all of those lines are contained inside of the, this is the connection between the inner circles here, inner 6 circles. And all those lines are contained inside of the Metatron's cube. And so if you keep doing that, you'll find that there are 5 possible shapes that are pulled out of there. And they're called the tetrahedron, the hexahedron, or the cube, the octahedron, the icosahedron, the dodecahedron, and then what's in there also inherently is the sphere. So there's a 6th one, which is that. And now all these are made only of straight lines, so they are male, and this one is female. All of these came out of that also. They're on the surface of a sphere, but you can't define it except through Metatron's cube. And in ancient times, these had a value, which was called, the tetrahedron was called fire, the cube was called earth, octahedron was air, icosahedron was water. The dodecahedron was either ether or prana, it's the life force energy itself, and the sphere was the void. In the ancient schools of Greece with Pythagoras and all that, they would not talk about this one, and Pythagoras wouldn't even admit it was there. He says, no, it's not there. He wouldn't talk about it except in the schools. Outside of the schools, he wouldn't talk about it because it was too holy to him. It's the life force energy itself. And, when other teachers came after him, they began to teach all five of them and not drop it out like he did. So fire, earth, air, water, and ether, or prana, you've heard this a million times, through alchemical formulas and everything else. And there is a real reality to this in ways that most of modern technological world does not understand at this time. Just for example, the DNA molecule itself that somebody just brought up. The DNA originally was looked at as a cube that rotated at 72-degree angles. But then somebody else saw in that another way of looking at it, and they saw that what it was really was an icosahedron and dodecahedron, that it was and those are duals of each other, meaning that if you connect the centers of this one, you get that one. And if you connect the centers of that one, you get this one. They are like reflections of each other. And what the DNA actually is a chain of icosadodeca, icosadodeca, icosadodeca moving down in this pattern, creating the spirals of energy. And that we're now functioning on 2 of these things, but there are actually 10 possible ones. There are some people out there saying there's 12. I'd like them to show me that geometrically. There are 10 spirals that come out of the DNA, not 12. But at any rate, that is possible somewhere. In the 60s there were 20 million people that dropped LSD. Probably were some of those, even more, you won't admit it. And that's a real big change in consciousness. It's a no kidding around, huge alteration in the way you perceive the reality. There was massive research done at the University of British Columbia on this. Little side note, by the way, all that stuff about chromosome breakage and everything and what our government said about it and how bad it was, they tried to duplicate that in Canada and couldn't duplicate any of it. The report that went to Premier Trudeau at that time was that LSD was less harmful to the body than an aspirin. That was right in the report. But besides that, what they did show, they found out what LSD did, and what it did is that temporarily for about 15 to 17 hours, it linked into the DNA molecule of the body and created a third strand. One more strand on you instead of 2, and so it jumped you from one kind of computer to another, and for a short period of time you were able to experience the reality from another level. And that was just with 3 strands. To jump up to 5, 6, 7, 8, 10, or 12, that some people say, would be a pretty doggone big jump. I don't think we're going to do that. I think evolution is usually in little tiny steps. But we are about to make a really big one. We're in the process of it right now. I don't know exactly what that will mean in DNA. We know that the new children coming in, that their DNA is changing, definitely. But we don't know what the end result in all of this is going to be. So anyway, getting back to these things here, these 5 platonic solids, they are the basis of all structure. Remember, this is only one of 13 systems of knowledge. This system defines the structure of the reality. And so every single crystal, of which there are over 100,000 different crystals that have been discovered, every crystal lattice structure contained, including all the metals, and even all the metals that they're now finding, the new ones that are amazing that are being discovered, they're finding metals that are over 100 times stronger than diamond, that can only be created in space. And even all those atomic structures and everything else like that are all defined through these 5 platonic solids, every single one of them. Every virus that comes into your body is a geometrical, three-dimensional geometrical pattern. Every single one of them are defined through these 5 shapes. There are people who have figured this out and who have made light patterns that will destroy all viruses. We have the cure for all viruses in the world already. Our governments won't let us put it out. We can cure anything, and quickly, in minutes. Cancer can be gone in less than 2 minutes. They won't allow it. Our government is based on people dying. We have to have people dying. It's 1/7 of our gross national product. They're not looking for a cure for cancer. They don't want a cure for AIDS. They want us to keep going. They're trying to reduce the population on top of it. But we actually have the cures. And it all came from Royal Rife, for you who want to know the secret behind this. Royal Rife discovered this a long time ago in the 50s. And discovered that all of his animals were cured from cancer just by shining the light of a certain frequency on there. And those 7 frequencies that he figured out, he shifted in his book. That's a lie, what's in the book. It's not true, but they've all been shifted mathematically the same, if you could figure that out. And so there are people who have figured that out and have made them. But it's interesting with that light, because we did massive research. When you shine it on some illnesses, it's instantaneous. The illness is gone. Within minutes, 2 minutes usually or less. Sometimes you have to do it a couple times if it's a real bad case. And the light. Where was I going with that? I started thinking about something else. Well, just look up Royal Rife's life. And there's a whole book on his life and everything about it. He was in the 50s. See, what happened with him is he found the cure for cancer and lots of other diseases, and then the head of the AMA said, wow, I want to be part of this. I want stock in this. And he went to him and said, I want stock in your thing. He goes, no way, I don't want you involved in this, and kicked him out. So the AMA turned around and made all of his work illegal and banned it. And it's still illegal in California. And then in Royal Rife, in order to hide it, he's told everything the truth, but in his book he shifted the frequencies. And those frequencies, but he shifted them to cause cancer.
What?
That's right. So you got to be careful with any of the Rife frequencies if they're using them directly out of the books. And there's a lot of people in jail right now because of that. And but they can be shifted. And what I know I was going to say, what happens with his system, if you get it right, you'll either see a miracle take place or nothing. And the reason is because those 5 shapes are not the end. That is the platonic system. The system, it's tied to music. I can't explain all this right now, but that is the platonic musical scale. That's the shapes associated with the first 5 notes of the platonic scale. Then you go to the octave, which is the next one up, which has 7 notes, not 8. It's got 7 notes in it. The 8th one is the return. And so there's 2 more shapes that are connected to the octave, which are the rhombic dodecahedron and the cube octahedron. And they are duals of each other also. And they produce the shapes of the octave, and then you go to the chromatic scale, which has 12 notes in it, and the 13th one is the return. And there's 5 more shapes that will be discovered. I know what they are. They're polyhedron. They're very specific ones. And so you end up with 12 shapes, and the 13th is a return. And if you have the full return connecting to the octave above, you have 13 primary polyhedron, which of this is only 5 of them. And then if you use what are called the stellated versions, where you can bring these out 3-dimensionally off the surface of them, and you bring them to the golden mean ratios, when you do that, you come up with 26 shapes. Those 26 shapes have a frequency. If you take those 26 frequencies and put them into a light, they'll cure any virus in the world, period, in the end, and it doesn't matter what it is. Even if there's millions of different ones of AIDS, it doesn't make any difference. They're all based on the same geometries, and you can tune them to destroy them. We actually have the cure for all diseases, just about, not only viruses, but even bacterial. But we're not politically in a position where that can be allowed to come out. We're in the same position with free energy also, by the way, and 0-point energy. 0 point is another area of which is all tied to sacred geometry again. It's something that could change the world. And we're in the process of doing that, and our government is in the process of allowing it to take place. The Department of Energy has now accepted 0 point as fact. Only it should be. It's been accepted as fact in physics for over 30 years. And but most physicists don't even know that it exists because it isn't talked about in most of the universities. But 1 cubic centimeter of void space anywhere in this room, right in your hand, based on E equals mc squared. There's enough energy in that little void space with nothing in it to reproduce the entire visible universe that can be seen through the Hubble telescope. That's beyond imagination. We can't even imagine how much energy that is. But it's accessible. And so when you realize how much space there is around the Earth, and we're sitting here digging holes in the ground to find oil, and we have an absolute infinite amount of energy available to us at all times, and there's over 40 perfectly working machines right now in the world that actually function and can tap into free energy, and our government won't allow them. It's pretty weird. But it's all tied to finances because the financial status quo of the planet is a certain way, and nobody wants to change it, and yet it's killing the planet, so they're trying, this is the dilemma. Eventually, free energy is going to have to come out. But if you want to really understand free energy and tap into it, you can't unless you understand this stuff. You have to understand the relationship of sacred geometry to get in there, otherwise you'll never find your way in. I'm really throwing out a lot of things, showing how everything is tied to sacred geometry. I don't remember what the next slide is, because I threw these together. Oh, yeah, okay. Just to show you how these platonic solids and those particular shapes of just those 6 shapes structure the universe. I'm going to first go into the macrocosm and just look at our solar system for a moment. There was a man named Kepler. When was that? 300 years ago or something like that? I don't remember when Kepler was, but it was something about 300 years ago. He knew all these shapes too. He was still studying the work of sacred geometry, and it was his belief that all the planets, the size of the planets, how big they are relative to each other, the size of the moons that rotate around them, the location of the orbit itself around the sun and everything else, was all based on sacred geometry and was all a function of these platonic solids. And so he built this image of this thing showing where Mercury was and where Earth and Venus and Mars and Jupiter and all these different planets, where they were. But he didn't have accurate information of the actual location of where these things were. And so he never could really make it work because at that time they didn't know where Venus was and Mars was, in truth, the distance was. But now we have very, very accurate information of the distance. We have the minimum orbit, maximum orbit, mean orbit of these planets and where they are, because they're changing over time. And we have very, very good information. And I'm going to show you something that if you've never seen this stuff before, if you got socks on, it'll probably knock them off, because this is pretty amazing. I'm going to start with something that was in my book and then goes beyond what was in my book. This is a drawing that many people have come up with. Nobody knows who originally did it. There's all kinds of people claim it as theirs, but every time you get someone who claims it's theirs, you can always find somebody earlier. I don't really know who did this, but and there's several different proofs of this. Mitchell has one that's beautiful, if you look into his book, and there's different ways of proving it. But if you take the human being, this is Leonardo's drawing, and you put a circle based at the navel, you'll see this circle comes right here. Let me see, where is it? Right there. It goes by the feet and goes out and comes up across, goes way up here. And then if you put your hands out like this, yeah, and close your eyes. If you put your hands out like that with your feet together, your height and your length of your body is geometrically supposed to be exactly the same. Now, it won't be on any one person, but if you take 100 people, and they've done this a lot, they've done a lot of research on this, take 100 people, you'll find that the height of the body and the wingspan is identical. The difference is 1/10,000th of an inch. It's a really, really small amount. And that one small amount is tied to what is called the Fibonacci sequence, the mathematical sequence that creates the human body. If you understand that relative to the golden mean, when you study that, you'll see why that 1/10,000th of an inch is there, because the human body is constantly trying to, or all life forms everywhere, all life, no matter where it is, even if it's ET anywhere, is the golden mean is the ideal that God created, and life can't do it because it's something that has no beginning and no end. And so life doesn't know how to deal with things that have especially no beginning. And no end we can kind of deal with, but no beginning we have a real problem with. And so we created something called the Fibonacci sequence, which all life forms are based on. And you can see it in plants, you can see it in everything, everywhere. And it starts out 0, 1, 1, 2, 3, 5, 8, 13, 21, 34, 55, 89, 144, 233, and it continues on. And all it is if you have 3, 5, and 8, it's just that you take the middle one, like 5, and you add the last one, you get the next one. So you take 5, you add 3 to it, and you get 8. But then if you add 5 to 8, you get 13. Understand? And you keep getting the next sequence by just adding the last one. So life has a plan. It can just look at what just happened, and it tells it where it has to go. And we all do that. That's how it works. You can see plants that actually grow leaves that start out 1, 1, 2, 3, 5, 13, and actually grow according to that pattern. You can see it, and once you study it, you'll see it in a million different ways. And it's in your human body. For example, the length of your hand to the length of your bone is in Fibonacci sequence. It's 1.618, which is the golden mean. Or if you take the length of this bone to this bone, it's 1.618, or the length of your foot to this, all your bones running through your body, even the little bones, this one to this one to this one. You can even take your hand and draw a line between this finger to this finger to this finger to this finger to this finger, so it makes a zigzag pattern. All that's broken up in the golden mean, only Fibonacci. And if you take the Fibonacci sequence and then multiply the last one sequence by the next sequence, it begins to approximate the golden mean. And as the numbers get bigger and bigger and bigger, the sequence gets closer and closer and closer to 1.6180339, which goes on forever. It's an infinite number. And it gets closer and closer and closer to that perfection. And so in this thing here, I want to move this circle down from the navel down to the base of the spine right there. And so that golden mean thing that we talked about with that 1/10,000th of an inch, there's an almost perfect square that fits around the human body. You couldn't see it anyway, that it wasn't a square. And the circle, when you move it down to the same place, you get this square that goes around here, which happens to be the golden mean ratio, approached in the same way as the Fibonacci sequence. And then an interesting phenomenon takes place. If you put a circle that would just touch right here, that circle right there, that will touch that circle. Oh, I forgot this one. This arm, when your hands are out like this, there's a circle that goes around the entire body that happens to be centered exactly on the navel. And that was that upper one I said. So if we move that one down to here and you get one that's perfectly formed around here, this square and that circle form what I call Fibonacci golden mean ratio. And then if you put a circle that's on that circle that touches the square, it makes that little gold circle. And then if you put another circle just inside the square around the human body, you find a very interesting relationship. I'm not going to do that here now. It's in the book. You can see the proof of it. It's awesomely accurate. But that size of that sphere there and that size of that sphere there is in exact proportion to the size of the Earth and the Moon. It's not off. It is so close. It's just perfect. And this was known a long time ago. It was known all the way back to at least Egypt. And but Kepler, in recent times, said, well, it's not just the Earth and the Moon. It's got to be everything. It's got to be all the planets and everything out there. It's got to be tied all together. Well, nobody's ever able to figure it out. People have tried to figure it out until recently. Somebody figured it out. This guy in England, this young man, he was only 23 years old, and he took all the known things that he knew about sacred geometry and put them into a computer, and he took all the relationships of the planets directly from NASA, which were accurate, and put them into the computer and said, "Computer, tell me if you see any relationships here." Well, he came up with a pile about this big, and proving beyond any doubt whatsoever, it's not even debatable, because it's all pure geometry and pure fact, that every single planet, every single moon, every single body, every single location, even relative to each other, is all tied to the 5 Platonic solids and to sacred geometry, which is what he believed in the first place. He doesn't want you to know his name, and so I won't tell you. He's afraid of becoming famous. And so he took his book back. There's only 1,000 copies in the world. And I've got one of the copies. And this is one of the, just to show you, for example, I forgot one more little detail. Before I tell you that, I got to tell you this. Well, I'll get back to that in a moment. This is just another thing. If you take the center of the moon and you go to the center of the earth, and then you go to the edges of the earth, you see this pyramidal shape. That pyramidal shape is in the exact proportions to the Great Pyramid. That angle right there is 51 minutes, 51 seconds, 51 degrees, 51 minutes, 24 seconds. And you have the exact relationship with the Great Pyramid. And in the Emerald Tablets, if you read that, Thoth says, I built the Great Pyramid from the proportions of the earth. And this proves what his statement right there. And you're welcome to study this and to do the math and to go crazy with it. And lots of people have, but it is true. It's not off. It's not wrong. So the human body contains within it the actual size of the planet that we're on and the moon that rotates around us. What the heck does that mean? What does it mean? NASA can find all the star patterns inside of us, and we have the actual proportions of the reality that we're on and sitting around us in our bodies, in every one of you. This is one of his drawings here. This one is the Pluto and Chiron, and this is the location of these relative to the sun. And he's discovered that if you take these three are just based on real simple, just the pentagon. And when you read his book, I would really like to get it out. He still won't give me permission to do it. It's one of the most interesting readings you've ever seen in your life. I mean, it proves for sure what Kepler's theories were right. But just based on this, if you take a pentagon facing up, then you put one facing down, then you put one facing up, and you do that 5 times, then this inner circle and this outer circle is the orbit of Pluto, and this inner circuit is the orbit of Chiron, and the accuracy is 99.8. All of these have an accuracy that's so perfect that, especially with a body that is changing, moving, and the whole system, the solar system is moving through space too at the same time, that it's amazing that you can even get to that kind of accuracy with everything. But they're all unbelievable accuracy, 99.8 perfection, just between those two orbits. I'm just giving you a couple examples. This one is between Mars and Venus, I think it is, yeah. And to find the relationship between those orbits, you take the sun. This is going to be Venus, and that's Mars. You just simply take one facing down and one facing up. And the inner circle is the orbit of Mars, of Venus, and the outer one is the orbit of Mars. And that one has an accuracy of 99.8. Perfect. You know, all over the world, they built sacred sites, the ancient people, to determine the equinoxes, for many reasons, many practical reasons as to when they plant and grow and things like this, you know, there's lots of them. And they build these huge structures, you know, like Stonehenge and all kinds of things to determine when the sun is at these different, at the Tropic of Cancer and the Tropic of Capricorn. And trying to do that, well, they could have drawn an image in the sand and figured it out, but nobody knew that at that time. This is the Earth down here. And if you take one facing down, one facing up, one facing down, you do 4 of them. And you draw one around that one there, then you draw one around there, and you draw one around there. And you put these lines down you put them down under these 3 circles flat like that, and superimpose them over the Earth. It defines precisely the Tropic of Cancer, the equator, and the Tropic of Capricorn perfectly. And that's with a 99.8% accuracy. It defines the very angle that we are tilted to the Earth, the 23.4 degree angle, in geometry, sacred geometry, the very way that we're moving around the sun. And if you read all the rest of his stuff, which just came out of a computer, everything, every planet, every moon, every size, everything that's in our solar system, where it's located, how it's orbiting around the sun, is all based on sacred geometry forms, all of which are functions and found out of the 5 Platonic solids. In this case, I use very simple ones, which is just the face of the pentagonal dodecahedron. And so this is just another proof of what NASA has already found, is that we are holographic. We are a measuring stick of the universe, our bodies. We contain everything. We contain everything on a physical level. We also contain everything on a consciousness level. We have all possibilities that are there already in your DNA, already contained within you. You are whole, complete, and perfect as you sit right now. Your connection with God is intimate. You might think you're just an ordinary person having a job at Walmart or something, but you're not. You're a whole heck of a lot more than that.
What was the guy's name?
I can't tell you his name. I promise. He said, I'll let you use my slides, but you cannot use my name. And I said, okay. And we were going to make a movie out of it, because it's so astounding. And I had all the funds. I had over $1 million collected from it. I was going to do the whole thing. He flew here from England, and right in the middle of it, he goes, I can't do this. He says, everybody will know me. I don't want them to know me. He says, I just want to be anonymous. See you guys later. He says, you can use this, but don't say who I am. So I have to honor that. But I can take all of his things, and we're Flower of Life now. Ron Holt just went. Is Ron Holt here? No, he's not here. He just sat down a week ago and put all of the images. There's about 250 images of these things into digital form, and we're going to see if we can use them. Show them out to the world without using his name, if he'll just let us do it. And I think maybe he will, as long as we don't ever say who he was. I agree with him. I mean, I didn't want, I fought for 2 weeks. When the angel said I had to do this, I didn't want to do this. I mean, I was having fun. I was living out in the middle of nowhere, out in the forest. I was playing music every day. I was having a really good time, and the last thing in the world I wanted to do was to go around and teach. But sometimes there's things more important than your own self and your own desires and things. And anyway, yeah.
Can I just ask a question or make a comment about that person whose name I also know?
Yeah.
He does have a little series of books that are available.
Yeah?
They're only published in England.
Yeah?
Wooden books, you know those?
Yeah, I know, that's what they are.
Covers?
But he retracted them all.
Oh, you took all those back?
He took them all off the thing. He won't allow them to go out. So what do? You know? But the work is incredible. The work is absolutely mind-blowing. Anyway, I got to keep going. I'm never going to get done here. Let's now go from the macrocosm to the microcosm. To when you used to be very geometrical. You still are, but don't know it. You started out as an ovum, which was just a round sphere. And then that round sphere divided into two, and went from one cell to two cells, and then when it went to four cells, guess what you became? A tetrahedron. The 4 points of a tetrahedron. And then when you went from a tetrahedron, you went to a star tetrahedron, or a cube, which are the same thing. And with one, so you went from 4 to 8. And when you became 8, there is an angle where you can turn it, where the 8 cells are in the form of a cube, and you'll see 4 cells, like these are the 4 cells right here. And there's 4 more directly behind it, but you can't see them because they're hidden directly behind there. But that's one of the views. And it forms a cube. And in fact, which we show in the Flower of Life book, even the thickness of what's called, of the membrane around those 8 cells, which is called the zona pellucida, is the thickness of why those 2 extra lines were around the Flower of Life. And in the exact proportion of what's in around the Flower of Life. And so what you're looking here is the exact proportions of the 8 cells of the human body when you were 8 cells, which also contains the exact proportions of the adult human body. So when you were only 8 cells little, you had the image contained within you of what you were going to be when you were big, perfectly in all of its proportions. You can go in lots of levels down, you can go down the very fabric of the reality, the periodic table of elements that contain all the elements and the atoms that are joined together to make up all this stuff that we call our world, is as science has figured out that all of the orbits and all the basis of the atoms themselves are all based on a cube, period, in the end. They are the function that designs all of the atoms and all the orbits and everything about them. And so the very world that we live within, the structural world of the atoms themselves, are a function of the cube. It never ends. Yeah.
Those 8 cells, do they correspond to the major 8 chakras?
Yes, they do. And the 8 electrical circuits that the Chinese talk about. The 8 primary meridians. And those 8 cells, those original 8 cells, remain unique to your body and stay with your body and never die, where all the rest of them die and replaced the rest of your life. And and you don't grow long ways like a body. You grow geometrically out from there. You grow out, radially out in a form that continues on out about 55 to 60 feet out from you, in repeating patterns of these geometries that is extremely complex, and we have in the book and talk about it. And the line of the chakras and everything in your body are along one of the axes running down that whole complex patterns of things. And from there is the basis of what are called the light bodies and the potential of higher levels of consciousness. All this was intimately known on Earth a long time ago until we screwed up during Atlantis. We misused energy, and the great fall down into this dense, dark world ensued. And from there, I'll get to just one second, we came back. We were allowed to come back. Galactic Center allowed it to us because we had already attained that. They allowed us to, and that's what all the sacred sites are tied to. That's what these buildings are for, is to reconstruct the grids around the Earth, which are necessary for us to move back to where we were before, the grids that we were talking about before. All the sacred sites and the crop circles and all these things are intimately connected together. It's one big picture going on. It's not in separate things. Yes?
Yeah, I was wondering, you just talked about the original 8 cells and how they're infinite to the life of the body. What do you suppose would happen if they were disturbed surgically?
A lot of people talked about that, and it doesn't make any difference at all. Even if you were to remove the cells, we exist on a 4th dimensional level, which comes down first as an electrical pattern. I've done a lot of work with this when they have the instruments, and it's really amazing. You can cut somebody's arm off. They don't have an arm. But when you pick it up using the things that pick up the microwave emissions that come off the body, you can still see the arm and the hand. And if you tell somebody to move their arm in their imagination, you're going to actually see the fingers moving, even though there's no arm there. And this is how certain human beings have been able to regrow arms and legs and things. It does happen, just like, like the little salamanders, they can pull an arm out or a leg and it'll just grow another one. There are a few human beings that have been able to do this. Most of us don't know how, but it's possible. And so even if you surgically remove that area, the blueprint pattern of the whole thing is still there. The life force energy is connected through it. So the physical structure is the least important of the whole thing in the whole pattern. Yeah.
Is the nervous system in the body related to the fourth dimensional energy then, or to the third dimension?
Well, the nervous system in the body is a three-dimensional aspect of it, tied to the geometrical patterns that have created it. In other words, it's an extension down into this world. But we have connections into all other dimensional levels. The human body does. We're tied to the whole creation pattern itself. But it takes different forms than magnetic or electrical energy fields. There are energies that we do not know here that exist on those levels. And in those levels, it manifests in different ways. Very, very soon we're all going to find this out because we're going to be there. We've been back and forth, all this between the third and fourth. Every time we die, we go in the fourth dimension. And then we come back here where we reincarnate and we forget that we were there. And then we go there and we forget we were here. And we're in this cycle. The cycle is being ended right now. This is your last life. You're not going to come back here again. This is it. And there's a few, the Tibetans are pushing it right now. They're still doing some of this, but for most people, this is it. You're not going to ever come back to this place again. Yeah.
Do the crop circles tell us what's coming next to the geometry?
Yeah, well, I'm trying to get to that, and I'm realizing I'm laying too much more. I just want, okay, in terms of the crop circles, let's look at this one field. This is the star tetrahedron that's around the body and exactly how it's around the body. And it's inscribed in a sphere that perfectly fits around that thing. These 8 points are your 8 primary chakras. Your chakras are in space as well as running up and down your body. The 8 electrical circuits that she was referring to are also connected outside of there. There's one there and there's one behind it. And this is your breathing tube through which higher levels of consciousness can begin to take place, which we've all forgotten about, except for the Tibetan Buddhists, which know this intimately. And this is a crop circle, for example, that Richard Hoagland was involved in. It's only a photograph, it's not a very good one. But you can see it doesn't look like anything, right? This looks like a circle, these things, and what is it? Who knows? Doesn't look like anything we recognize, right? Except Richard Hoagland had the advantage of having very, very good mathematicians on his team. These are very, very brilliant people. And they broke it down into this. These precise angles that were here, like this angle was off by that, and then this one was off by that. And when they unfolded all of that, lo and behold, that describes mathematically, perfectly, a star tetrahedron inscribed in a sphere. So this here is another way of saying that. Same thing. But if we don't know sacred geometry and we don't know high-level mathematics, it just looks like a crop circle. Because the people who are talking to you are a little bit more advanced than us. But they're trying to talk to us on a really low level from their point of view to communicate things to us. And they're talking about the doorways of consciousness in this particular case. They're talking about lots of things. Well, it is, and it is. Now, the reason Richard was interested in this, which, God, I wish I had more time. Richard was interested in this because when he unfolded the information on the D&M pyramid on Mars, which is a 10-mile-high pyramid, if you can imagine that. 10 miles high. That pyramid was, the information was unfolded around that, which described a star tetrahedron in a sphere. I talked to him about all of this stuff, and actually I talked to him before he knew about this, before he'd been able to do that. And when he discovered that, there was something about, which is another remember this one here? I forgot what the name of it was. This is a drawing of it. This was
Barbary Castle.
Barbary Castle. This was about, 4 years ago, 5, 6 years ago, something like that. This particular crop circle truly blew the minds of certain mathematicians, because there was only at that time about 3 people in the world that knew what this meant. So if there was some guy out there making a crop circle, he was a genius beyond belief. Because you see this little bend in this line, but this one's straight, but that one is bent right there at that slight little angle. That line, that one line stopped certain people right in their tracks, because what this is describing is fourth dimensional and hyperdimensional space. And mathematically perfectly. This is a very, very deep level of communication here that really only hardly anyone even in the world knew or was able to understand. And so it fell into what Richard was trying to understand at that time. You see the outer planets, Jupiter, Saturn, Neptune, and Pluto, are all putting out more energy than they're receiving from the sun. A lot more. And so science has for a long time been trying to figure out, okay, well, where's it coming from? It's got to be coming from somewhere, because it's not coming from the sun. The sun hasn't produced enough energy for those planets to put out that much energy. And so, based on this idea of the star tetrahedron inscribed in a sphere, this thing back here, and the idea of hyperdimensional space, putting those two things together, they looked at the outer planets in a whole new light. And when the mathematicians did that, using those ideas, they discovered that they could then begin to explain something. That perhaps what the planets were doing was using their Mercator fields, and planets are the energy fields around the human being are identical around everything, around planets or suns or galaxies, atoms, anything else. It's the same pattern repeated over and over and over again. And so they looked at those planets, and if it was true that they were pulling hyperdimensional energy, in other words, free energy out of 0 point, if the planets were doing that, then there had to be a phenomenon. In other words, what the mathematics said is there had to be a phenomenon around the North Pole of those planets, and it would have to be hexagonal in shape, right around the North thing, because that's what the mathematics showed and came back geometrically. And so when they looked at Saturn, they found out that there's a wind blowing around the North Pole of Saturn, 300 and something miles an hour, going in the opposite direction that the planet is rotating in a perfect hexagon, making the turns exactly perfectly, blowing, and it never stops, going around and around the planet. Then when they looked at Neptune, they found that the ice that was frozen there's a mountain range frozen around the North Pole of Neptune, which is in a perfect hexagon. And that's when NASA began to realize, son of a gun, they're actually doing that. These things are alive. And they're actually pulling the 0 point energy to create this massive amount of energy that they're emitting. And all of this understanding came of the understanding of sacred geometry and how it relates to everything in the reality. And another thing I got to show you real quick, which is pretty amazing, here's the star tetrahedron in a sphere, and you see this line right here and line right there. Those, if that was a planet, it would cross at the 19.5 north and south latitudes, or more specifically 19.48 north and south latitudes of the planet. And they studied, and they found out like all the major, the big volcanoes on the Earth are sitting on those two places right there. The largest volcano in the solar system on Mars sits exactly on the 19.48 I can't remember if it's the south or the north one, but it's on one of them. And I'll show you a photograph now, but if you don't believe that that's effective in all things, we're going to look at the sun. This photograph was taken about 2 years ago. One day, there was over 30 major solar flares going on at once. And where were they going on? This is a picture of the sun. At exactly ringing the planet of the sun, we're exactly at the 19.48 north and south latitudes where these major solar flares going off, exactly in those two latitudes right there.
The spot on Jupiter is also at 19.
That's right. The dark spot on Jupiter sits exactly on the 19.5 south latitude, exactly on one of the points. And so when you have a counter-rotating field, like you see in the Merkaba meditation that we teach, you're spinning this way and you're spinning this way. This one's spinning 34, this one's spinning 21. The difference is 13. And so you have a slow, counterclockwise rotational field. The sun and all the planets, other than Pluto, which has been hit, are all rotating slowly in a counterclockwise rotation. They're just huge Merkaba fields, living alive, and that's what the reality is. The reality is nothing but a big Merkaba field. This rotating field that I'm talking about, like here, you'll see it in nature. This is a pine cone. I'm going to have to go a little faster now. If you count the number of spirals moving this way on here, and then the number running this way, in this particular thing, you'll find that it's 8 running this way and 13 running that way. Again, it's subsequent Fibonacci numbers. And all the Merkaba fields used throughout life everywhere are all based on the Fibonacci sequence and subsequent numbers. And so this one here is a sunflower, and the spins moving one way and the spins moving the other way are rated at another one, of 144 moving one way and 233 moving the other way. Again, subsequent Fibonacci sequence numbers. You're looking at a Merkaba field right here. And that's how this plant emerges out of its seed pattern. This is a crop circle, again showing you counter-rotating fields, but this one is called equal speed. Notice how it actually becomes three-dimensional and begins to look like a donut shape. This is the most primal shape in the universe, more important than even the 5 that I showed you before. The first one that comes out of the flower of life is the tube torus, or the toroidal field. Every single thing in existence has a toroidal field around it. Even the Merkaba field that we teach in that, you have a big toroidal field around you. The planet does, the stars do, everything does. And what they're talking about in these crop circles are exactly this. Here you see the star tetrahedral field, the proportions of it, and the spin ratio moving. But if you see it, it's moving, it looks like it's moving in this direction. That's the illusion when you look at vortex mechanics, and this is something that a lot of people out there on the internet and everything don't understand. People have said, well, you look at a hurricane and it's moving, in the clockwise motion, and they're saying, well, I'm wrong in having my speed ratios in this way because I'm having a counterclockwise motion. Well, if you take a water hose and you are the source of the spin, and you spin counterclockwise, you start spinning around counterclockwise like that, but you're sitting above it. The spirals will look like they're moving clockwise. So if you're looking at the effects of a vortex field, you'll see everything moving one way. But what caused it is always moving in the opposite way. And that's something that, and not only that, I'm going to show you something. Watch this. Which way am I moving for you? Clockwise, right? But not for me. I'm moving counterclockwise. It depends on where you're located. If you're at the North Pole or the South Pole, whether something is moving counterclockwise, and you have to specify. So if you say something's moving counterclockwise, the next question is, are you at the North or the South? We're reviewing that. And then not only that, but there's different kinds of vortexes, and some of them rotate in, like a Fibonacci one, the life one, will go in, and it comes in out the other way and reverses its field. If it comes in female, it goes out male. If it comes in male, it goes out female. And then you have a golden mean one, which goes in forever and never changes, and it just keeps going in and in and in and in and in and in and never changes back. And there's all kinds of vortex energies, and so you need to study carefully the relationships of all these things before you make obvious statements about whether something is moving, which way it's moving, and what the source is. But they're clearly speaking about the rotating fields of the star tetrahedron. They've already described it, now they're showing it. They're showing it again. You can see the 6 circles, the seed of life around that, and the inner string. If you were to measure all these circles inside of here, you'll fit them over the flower of life. You'll see how this all fits in there, and the vortex fields that are associated inside of there. Every Merkaba field is I'm really throwing a lot at you fast. There is only one reality, just one. There just is whatever there is. But at least life has figured out at least 100 major ways of interpreting that one reality. And then within each one of those, there's millions. And so in other words, the Merkaba we teach is the one that takes you into the 4th dimensional level of consciousness, where you begin to interpret the reality from there. Soon after that, we're going to the 5th dimension, which is formless. There's no form anymore. You become everything. And when you enter that 5th dimension, which you've been there many, many, many times before, it'll feel like it's brand new, and you're going to go in there and you become everything, and you go, this is it. This is it. This is everything. This is everything I've ever wanted to know. But after you're there for a certain length of time, you'll begin to realize that there's an anomaly, and that son of a gun, there is another way to perceive it, and you do that, and you become all things differently, and you go, this is it. Maybe not knowing that there's about 100,000 more levels above you before you return back to the source from which you all came from. And it's just part of the trip. And then all of this is just based, all of this reality, everything in it, is just based on a sphere. That's all it is. It's one concept. There are, who knows, from here you can't talk about it. Who knows how many other ways God has figured out to experience life in other kinds of realities. But this one is only a sphere. The flower of life is the key, and it's really pretty simple. The crop circles keep speaking about this. Oops. All of these rotating fields and everything, if you can focus this one, could you do that for me? This is the ultimate end.
Looks like a UFO.
About there? Yeah.
What that is a photograph of a galaxy. It's called the Sombrero Galaxy. And it's a galaxy that's never been hit or bumped into or run into or distorted in any way by massive explosions. And you have a sphere here with a disk running around it. And the human being, when their Merkaba fields goes out, that's what it looks like in that exact proportion. And the counter-rotating fields, and galaxies do have counter-rotating fields. The universities have now proven this, that they usually think that they were all the stars and everything were rotating in one way. Now they found that a certain percentage of the stars are rotating one way, a certain percentage are rotating the other way. There's an axis down the middle, a toroidal field around the whole thing, and it's just a big Merkaba field. And they now even found an axis running through space, that the entire reality is on an axis. It doesn't seem to go anywhere or come from anywhere important that we know of, but it's there. And light travels differently down that axis than it does anywhere else. So now 2 speeds of light. There's one at any other angle, but if you parallel light at exactly the angle of the axis of all that is, it slows down. It moves differently. And which verified even further. This is an infrared photograph of that same galaxy. And we're beginning to see what the Merkaba is, and much of the communication in the crop circles is all around this information of not only the flower of life and the aspects that come out of it, but the ideas of higher consciousness in Merkaba fields. And they're talking about it over and over and over in various different kinds of ways. You know what this is? What do you think that is? Just somebody happened to make a sculpture that looks like the galaxy pattern or the Merkaba field. That is a mound in England, and the ancient kings of England were buried. The king was buried in the middle there, right inside the center. And there's another one back there, and there's another one back there. There's three of them in there. And they're in the exact proportions of the human Merkaba field. And so they knew it then. This slide came from Busty Taylor. He gave it to me directly. And Busty's he's got a really good handle on all of this. And I mean, the two researchers that are very important because they're old, they've been around for so long, and the new ones that are coming in have got fantastic ideas and are beginning to tie it in all kinds of ways, and their work's really important. But these old guys, Colin Andrews and Busty Taylor and these guys, are important because they understand a lot of the basis, and they've tracked with it from the beginning of all of this. So, wonder why they fly around in ships that look like that. Our government knows beyond a doubt that they have captured the ships. They don't want to tell you this. I've talked to people high up in the levels of the CIA and the government. They have told me directly that this is true, that they do have this. The motors that they have found are living beings. They are alive and conscious. Just the motors that create these things. And a lot of these ships, the motors are the people themselves. The people, the ships don't take the people into the other dimensions. The people take the ships into the other dimensions, and they use these proportions because these are the proportions of nature, of duplicating what it is. And it's all, and so the crop circles are a phenomena that are tied to the UFO phenomena. And these are some more. And this one is a very interesting one, because this one came out of Mexico, and what's happening in Mexico is very, very important, and will, in the future, I believe, probably become the trigger that UFOs are discovered through. Happening in Mexico are what are called the plasma ships. This is an actual photograph. That's a huge. You're looking at it underneath. There are 8 of these things around it. They're round and they're I have had videos of these. Carlos Diaz has 250 hours of videos and 1,800 photographs from 1 foot away to directly underneath them, like the ceiling of the roof and everything else like that. Mexico has a huge team of scientists that have been allowed, that have had now 7 landings of these things and blow up and go right directly to them. They are coming out of the earth. They're not ETs. ET means extraterrestrial. They are from here.
ITs.
Yeah, ITs, inside ITs. They're knees. They're from inside the earth. I've communicated with him. He's communicated with him. He's been on board the ships. They were going to put a Mexican scientist on board one recently, a couple of years, about a year and a half, a little over a year ago. And to actually go on, a beam of light comes down, you step in it, and according to Carlos, it feels like a really fast elevator. And you get up there and you don't have a body. The inside of that thing is one big living Merkaba field, and the beings have merged into a spirit. And he says, you just merge and you become, that becomes all life everywhere. And the scientist, he was in his late 70s, they chose him to go because they respected him. And he has it on video, actually. And the scientist stepped in the beam, and he got about maybe 8 or 9 feet off the ground and just started freaking out. He started screaming and yelling and like that. And so they gently put him back down and went away. And he couldn't make it. It's too much fear. You can't have any fear. You have to be absolutely fearless. You have to know that you're immortal, that you can't die, and there's nothing to lose and nothing to gain on those levels. But these guys, I sat down with Carlos, and he wanted me to go on board the ship and to have, because they came to him and said, they said, go to see Drunvalo. Well, he didn't even know who I was. He didn't have any idea. He had to do a bunch of research, and and then I happened to be in Mexico, and we had a meeting. And he said that he wanted to give me over all of his, all the photographs, all the stuff, and everything like that, and I was to make contact with them, and they wanted to come out to the world and to talk to us. They had something to tell us. And he said that what the story they told him was that that they used to be on the surface of the earth like us. They were in physical form. They didn't look human, but they were similar, but the consciousness level was similar. And that they had a very high level of technology. And they were doing the same thing. They were killing their planet because they didn't understand what they were doing on a lot of levels. And an ET race came to them and simply told them something. So, they just told them something about themselves and then left. And they said that very quickly, once they knew that, they transformed, they became pure light, and they chose to go inside the earth to live. And they've been there for a very, very long time. And that that's all they want to do, they said. They just simply want to make direct connection with us and tell us something about ourselves. They want to tell us the same thing that was told to them. And they believe that once we know this, that we will never be the same, and we will quit killing the earth and transform everything. It has to do with the heart.
Why didn't he go into the ship?
He asked why I didn't go into the ship. It was all arranged. In fact, I had Paramount Pictures and the guys from Star Trek, LeVar Burton and all these guys. Figured, why not? They had all their cameras. We had the true. He said I could bring up to 100 people to witness this. And so he had to, the Pope called him to have a meeting with him to talk about this. And he went there, he came back, and we were to meet on a certain day at a certain time. When he came back from the Pope, we couldn't find him. We had his name, his address, his phone number, his fax number, his email, everything. We could not find him anywhere. He would not answer us and talk to us. And that went on for a couple months, and it went past the time when we were supposed to do it. And we go, what's going on? And he sent this woman, this Mexican woman, to us. She called us and said, look, I want to talk to you. I won't tell you over the phone. She came all the way, flew up, sat in eyeball to eyeball and said, somebody has abducted Carlos's family, and that they were told that if he did this with me, that they were going to kill his family and him and everybody. And so
Satanists.
It's secret government people and stuff. And so it's just not the right time. Everything's timing. It's no problem. Everything will happen at the right time. But you're going to see more of these guys. I can guarantee it that way. What? They've let them all go as long as he does not make any more contact with me at all. So it's okay. Time is right. You see this book? Has anybody ever seen this book before? That book is what I was talking about yesterday. That book, you remember the Air Force had a project called the Blue Book Project? The head of the Blue Book Project, who was also the head of the Grunge Project before that, who investigated all the UFOs in the United States, who knew more about it than anybody alive. When he got out of the Air Force in 1952, this was all writings from 1947 to 1951. When he got out in 1952, he wrote this book secretly and put it out. He was killed right after that. And every single book in the United States, even Library of Congress, and everything that you can find anywhere was removed off the planet. A copy of it appeared in my room. Don't know where it came from, but I got it. It's now all digitally been done, and it's about ready to be put back out again. When you read that, when you read what he has to say, There's no doubt. Absolutely none. There are UFOs, definitely. And you just read what he has to say. He knows, he's the highest government official in the United States government. What you may not know is that there were no UFOs except for few. They appeared every once in a while in history, but not very much. But on a single day in the June of 1946, they appeared all over Europe, and only Europe. This is what he's talking about. Nowhere else in the world. And they appeared only over military installations. And then on a single day in June of 1947, they appeared all over the United States. All over all of our military installations. 45,000 sightings were found over military installations between 1947 and 1951. They described the triangular shapes, the cigar shapes, the ones that we were showing over there, the balls of light and the balls of flame. And he talks about how they had F-14s. They selected 750 of these. Out of these 45,000, they selected 750, the Blue Book Project, to analyze carefully if they were real or what they were not real. They knew that something was going on, and they thought it was the Russians. He says this in the beginning. They thought it was the Russians because they were the only ones that had that technology, or possible. And after extensive spying and espionage, they discovered, no, it's not the Russians, and then they thought it was us. And the generals behind all of this, behind the Blue Book Project, did a secret research to find out if we had any secret stuff going on that could possibly do this, and couldn't do it. You see, out of these 750, these were ones that were directly over military bases, with somebody on the ground, usually at least a colonel or higher, that was watching it go over, with the UFO going very low, directly over the top, with an F-14 directly behind it. So there's the pilot directly behind it taking photographs of this whole thing, and with radar on the bottom tracking them going over. So they were pretty sure that they were not their own. And so they investigated these things to the highest level, on a level at least what we would on a murder case. And they checked everything, the weather balloons and all the other stuff that you heard about and everything else like that. And the conclusions were, I mean, these things, they tracked these things, were directly behind where these things were going up and up and up and up and up and up until the F-14s couldn't fly anyhow because there's no oxygen. And they just kept running going and went out into outer space. They watched them do it and had photographs of all of this. They tracked them at over 60,000 miles an hour. You know how fast 60,000 miles an hour is? You go around the Earth 2.5 times in 1 second. Or 1 hour, rather. That's 25,000 miles around the Earth. So you go around the Earth in, 20 minutes or something like that? 30 minutes? 25 minutes? And they also tracked him, what he was talking about, how they'd be directly in front of him, just like a block in front of them. And the F-14 would lock on with radar, and the moment they locked on with radar, the thing would disappear and reappear behind them. You know, it sounds like when you read this book, you would think that this was written in the 90s by somebody who, somebody who is, that we don't really trust and all that other kind of stuff. A lot of people don't. But when you realize who's doing this, the former head of the United States Air Force project investigating flying saucers, he was only a captain, Captain Edward Ruppelt, and that book now is digitally informed and it's going to go out.
Is it going to be the same title?
Yes.
Is it an e-book?
It's now going to, we're going to put it out in every possible way if we can, but we want to put it out in hardback because to document it forever.
Drunvalo, did you hear last night about the sci-fi expose that they did? They apparently sent out a archaeological team to Roswell. Mm-hmm. Well, Art Bell had the archaeologist on last night, and on one of the portions of the program, what they did is decipher the letter that
Mm-hmm.
was holding that said specifically that there were, I think, 3 craft and 4 bodies and 1 alive, and that they were taken to this and that base and so on, and they digitally enhanced it and deciphered it now, so that's out. Plus they have archaeological evidence from the crash site.
Do you know that there was a crash? When that one crashed in Roswell, there was one that crashed just right here in Cave Creek? And that one never got any publicity, but when they were picking up the pieces out there, they were picking up the pieces here in one right in Cave Creek, and which is in North Phoenix. And the colonel, the captain rather, that was involved in that work of picking all that stuff up, moved here to Phoenix and lived here. And he died recently, about 5 or 6 years ago. And they found in his attic a painting of the crash. You could see the whole thing of the disc-shaped thing of the whole thing. And they put it on the front page of the Arizona Gazette.
Wow.
And everybody goes, wow, 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 and it just, who cares, and let it go.
So my point is, with this book coming out and these things happening, it sounds like disclosure is very close at hand.
Well, Stephen Greer is really trying to do it. A lot of people are trying to do it, and the UFOs are ready. They've told me. I've actually had them in my living room, honest. I've had them standing right in front of me. I've looked in their eyes, and they are ready, and they believe we are ready. But it all has to line up perfectly, and we're getting close to that time. But you must realize that the moment that is actually accepted in mainstream, we will never be the same. That day, we will be a different race.
Yay!
We will be a different person. You know, and everything will change. Never be the same. Well, it's a good thing. It's a real good thing. All the stuff of the grays and the reptiles and all that stuff like that, that was a problem for a while, and that played out. Linda Howe, who's here, and her work. Did she talk about? Is she here now? She's talking now. She's an old friend, and we spent a lot of time together talking about stuff. You know, like the cattle mutilations and all that stuff. ABC gave her a whole lot of money to research that on a level that you normally couldn't do unless you had lots of money. And they call them cattle mutilations. Well, they're not cattle mutilations. They were all done with laser technology and surgical laser technology on a level that only a handful of people in the entire world are able to do. And there were thousands and thousands and thousands and thousands of these cows that were found, and sheep and a few others that were found everywhere, all over the world, mostly centered in the area near New Mexico and Colorado. That's because the Greys had their base there, under the ground there, and it was convenient for them to do it there. And but she made a movie called A Strange Harvest. I really recommend that you pull that out of mothballs and look at that movie, because it's documented with police and everything else. They went through the records. You can look at what they did, where they took this out, they took the organs out of their mouths, the sexual organs, all this stuff. It's perfectly done with a technology that really, at that time, when she was doing that, she went to the hospitals and said, can you do this? And they go, well, we can't do it, but there's a few people that can do this kind of stuff, and there aren't enough people in the world to be able to do the number of cows that were done on those levels. There aren't enough human beings alive to be able to. They would have to be doing nothing but that. And people say, well, it was the government's doing it. Well, why would the government, if the governments wanted to do cattle mutilation, they'd do it in secret, hidden places. Why would they leave them under trees and everything else like that? Without a sign or anything else like that. And how could they remove every single last red blood cell out of the body without even one left over? We don't know how to do that. There is no technology that we know how to do that.
Why are they doing it?
That's all because, if you want to know, I can tell you quickly, and I have to stop. When the Greys came here, they came here originally because of our, which has to do with the Montauk and the Philadelphia experiment, but even going further back than that, what happened on Mars and a lot of other things, but there's all these Merkaba experiments that we got involved with. And because of our work with Merkaba experiments and the U.S. government, we had made major mistakes and broken big laws which destroyed over 100 of their planets in the Orion constellation. And so they killed them, everybody on them. And so they came here to stop us. And when they realized who they were, their intention was to sterilize this planet and get rid of us because we were breaking the laws. And they had the legal right and permission from the Galactic Center because we have gray blood in us because of the Martian experiments that happened long ago. And so we're part of them, and they can say, yeah, go do it. But when they tried to do it, they couldn't. For the same people that are making these crop circles, the ascended masters, on the part of us, part of the human experience has gone ahead, a long ways ahead. And when they tried to do that, they couldn't. And I don't want to get into that whole experiment, what happened, but then they realized that, wow, we're a lot more than what they thought. But during that time, while they were doing that stuff, they found out something, big piece of news. That the universe, not just the Earth or the solar system, but all of life everywhere, is about to make a transition from one octave of experiences into another. This doesn't happen hardly ever. It hasn't happened in 15, 16 billion years, but it's about to take place in the very near future. And once this was discovered and that information was spread out through Galactic Command to all life everywhere, including the Greys were presented with a huge dilemma. The Greys are a civilization that has chosen to eliminate emotions and to eliminate sexual energy. They found that it was just a big problem for them and it was causing wars and they just didn't want to deal with it anymore. And so the route that they chose to go was a purely mental experience. And because of that, they can't create living Merkaba fields because it requires emotional feminine side as well as masculine side. And so they went into a totally technological reality. Well, in order to get from one octave to another, you have to pass through what is often referred to as the Great Wall. There is a void space between all the 144 dimensional levels, just like the space out there. But you can pass through those through their technology. But the space between the octaves is a void space that God has made in such a way that no physical thing can move through it. Nothing physical can move through that void. Well, that's a big problem if you're a technological society. If your whole life is based on a UFO that will take you through to the dimensional levels and move you through everywhere, and everything is based on technology, and you can't create a living Merkaba field, which is the only way to get through that thing, then that's a problem. You can see how big a problem that would be. And since they were here and they realized the power of our emotional body, we do have an extraordinary emotional body that is amazing all over the universe. It's pretty amazing. And they chose to take our emotional body and to blend it with theirs. So they began the cattle mutilation to see how our sexual energy and the tie between our sexual energy and our emotional bodies, how it was linked together. And then they abducted about 3.5 to 4 million human beings and took them on board and did lots and lots of experiments on them. Some of them were not very nice. And they had permission to do that, not only from Galactic Command, but from our own governments. And in doing that, they created a third race that doesn't look like us or them, but using their DNA and our DNA, blending it together to keep their mind and their memories intact, but to splice in our emotional body so that that race can create a Merkaba field so that when this happens, they are able to pass through to the Great Wall over to the other side. That's what it's all about.
Is there a name for that race?
Probably is. I don't know what it is.
The hybrids.
Society, yeah, that's one that we have given to it. I don't know if they have or not. But they're very tall. In the future, we become very good friends with them, because we make it through and so do they. But the gray race does not. It goes back into potential because it can't do it. But they make it through in their other race. Their memories remain intact. They get on the other side. But we become very good friends because their emotional body and our emotional body are the same. And so our makeup is so similar that we end up falling in love with each other. And we just end up really liking each other a lot. And we become, in the future, good friends. Yes?
How soon is that octave change?
I can't tell you that because I don't know. But, Yes, our lifetime. Soon. I would say definitely within the next 10 years or so.
You were about to describe them. Would you describe them, the tall ones?
They're just really tall. They're about maybe almost 7 feet. Really skinny, thin. The body didn't come out as well as they hoped. But it won't matter, because when you're in a body, you're all the same, and you end up thinking it's beautiful anyway, so it doesn't matter. Yeah.
Are Spielberg and Lucas capturing some of this for the public? Or?
They have been informed a lot on this. I sit and talk to a lot of these guys myself, and they're constantly tracking with what's going on in these levels. But they didn't get it right for a long time, but they're beginning to get it right. Now, that movie, The Signs, was wrong. That was just wrong. I can't believe they did that one. But according to Collins, they're coming out with 2 more that are coming out real soon that are more accurate into what all of this is about. But I talk with Paramount Pictures and the Star Trek people all the time, especially LeVar Burton, who, he was Geordie with that thing around him. And they are carefully watching what's going on. He introduced me to Marty Hornstein, who was the producer of all the Star Trek movies. So when I went to meet him and his wife, I figured, okay, these guys, they know. They know all this stuff, I'm sure. And we were sitting there having dinner, and we slowly started unfolding it. And I realized they don't have the slightest idea what's going on on the streets. What's really happening in the world. They were, no connection at all. He was real heavy. He smoked, he drank, he did all this stuff. And so I said, look, Marty, I can't go any further. We gave him a pile of books about this high. I said, read this stuff and I'll come back in a few months. He read all those books. I came back and there was a different person in front of me. He's thin, normal weight, doesn't drink or smoke anymore. He's become a vegetarian and does yoga. And he goes, I had no idea. He said, I'm making these movies about this stuff and we have no idea. And so there is a transformation going on in Hollywood, and Hollywood's important because they are the image makers that transmute the information back out to us. But they do make a lot of mistakes. Yeah,
The one, the one that was heart-shaped. And, as soon as I saw the picture of that one, too, I thought, that can't be a real one from Germany. And yet the scientific evidence, it had the ruptured nodes, it had the lengthened nodes, it had all the signs that we're used to seeing of an authentic